Good afternoon, everybody. It is 1:01 p.m. I would like to call to order the regular board meeting for Thursday, January 23rd, 2025. And I would also like to take a moment to acknowledge that the Sunshine Coast Regional District is located on the traditional territories of the Shishak and Squamish Nations. Directors, we do have a revised agenda in front of us today, adding item 6.5, which is Committee of the Whole Meeting Recommendations 1 and 3 from this morning. Are there any other changes to make to the agenda today? If not, I look for a motion to adopt. Moved, seconded, all those in favor, and that is carried. Thank you. Next up, we've got the regular board meeting minutes of January 9th, 2025. Excuse me, can I have a motion to receive all reports and informations? Moved and seconded, all those in favor? Thank you. Okay, item 3.1, starting on page 3, regular board meeting minutes of January 9th, 2025. Directors, are there any errors or omissions in those minutes before we adopt? Seeing no hands up. Director Gabius?
I don't know if it's in this one, so go ahead.
Okay, I don't see any hands up, so I will ask for motion to adopt, please. Moved and seconded. All those in favor? And that is carried. Is there any business arising from the minutes and unfinished business that directors would like to bring up from these minutes? If not, we will continue moving forward. Director Gabius, are you okay?
No,
Sorry. I believe it's on page 5. Sorry, the minutes, right? Meeting regular board, appointments, AVIC Special Committee on Solid Waste Management appointee. Was that Director McMahon on page 5?
I thought it was you because you.
No, that's Vickle.
Oh, okay. Okay, so maybe just a correction that
Yeah.
those two names are reversed. All right, and that's on page 5, part of.
Yeah, it is.
Is it business arising from the minutes or unfinished business, Director Bax?
Yeah, on that same page, I noticed that I don't have an alternate for my position as as Sunshine Coast Senior Planning Table Liaison. Would that be something we could correct, or is it something really necessary?
I don't think it's an error in the minutes. I don't know that it's strictly necessary. I don't know if the corporate officer wants to weigh in on whether it's a requirement, but I don't believe it is.
It's actually not a requirement, and it would require a separate board resolution if we were to appoint an alternate at this point in time.
Okay, we'll just leave it like that. Thanks.
Thank you. Director McMahon.
Yeah, thank you to Director Gabius for catching that. The AVICC Special Committee on Solid Waste Management, I know that I'm the appointee, and I don't remember who the alternate is. The one that we switched them off was the AVICC Climate Committee. Previously, I was the appointee and Director Gabius was the alternate, and we switched it around, and I think this just got confused in the minutes.
Great. I think we're good to,
Yeah, if staff can check that later.
yeah, staff can confirm that for us for sure. Okay, I don't see any other hands up, assuming Director McMahon, thank you, but that was residual. So with that, we're going to move on to the Finance Committee meeting recommendations 1 through 39 of January 13th and 14th. As item 6.1 in the agenda, starting on page 10. Directors, before I look for motion to endorse the block, are there any recommendations that you want to pull for separate discussion or debate? There's a lot of recommendations there, so I'll give everybody a moment. I don't see anybody jumping up and down. So, directors, may I have a motion to endorse the block, please? Moved, seconded. Thank you, Director McMahon. Any other discussion on the motion? If not, all those in favor? And that is carried. Now, before I move on to the next item, oh, Director White, did you raise your hand? Sorry.
Was that for the budget?
Correct.
Yeah, I opposed that. I didn't get that.
Oh, okay.
You didn't
Sorry.
call for opposition, but
Okay,
Yeah.
Director White is
Right,
opposed.
right.
The motion is carried. Director White will record your vote. Before I move on to item 6.2, I did want to make one additional motion. I talked to the CAO about this over lunchtime, and we do have a number of services that we do sort of a return to taxation from, rate stabilization. And having seen the surplus deficit report this morning, I would like to make a motion to increase the rate stabilization from finance, which is functions 112113, by $100,000 to a total of $150,000 for 2025 through the 2024 surplus. So, and I've got a seconder for that motion. Director Inkster, I see the quizzical look. This is basically negative taxation, so it would be a return from the surplus. So it would help to reduce taxation increases. Is there any, I mean, the floor is open, so feel free to turn your microphone on.
Thanks. So the money is coming from surplus at the end, and we've increased it, so it just comes back around. That's what you're saying, back to,
The rate stabilization
Yeah.
is a prior existing program. Might have to get the CAO to bail me out on the background here, but
okay.
it is something that has been pre-existing to return excess monies back. CAO?
So there was a report on the the round two budget deliberations for support service allocations, and in there was a paragraph about some decisions that had been made a couple of years ago related to ongoing rate stabilization, which means a reduction overall, so of the revenue that's needed. So we're taking it from reserves or past surpluses that had built up over years. And so we had made some decisions up till 2026 in some services and up to 2027 in others. And some have various declining balance. For finance in particular, it was $50,000 per year up until 2027. And so in our lunchtime chat, there was an ask as to whether or not we could increase that amount, and we thought that 100,000, adding an additional 100,000 for 2025 out of that 2024 surplus would be completely reasonable. So it would just reduce the support service costs overall, which is a combination of user fees and taxation. So it's not a one-to-one relation for taxation, but it will have an overall decrease to the bottom line for taxation.
Thank you, CAO. Directors, any discussion on the motion? Director White?
Yeah, this is a bit of a communications question, but I've seen, I mean, this may relate, I'm trying to keep up on all the communications that have just happened in the last 24 hours even. There was a press release that went out about the budget, and I guess subsequent coverage in the local media suggesting very low increases. I mean, it was definitely under the 10%, far under the 10% that I've seen estimated to Gibson's. So that really raised my eyebrows that's what the media is reporting to the public. I need to understand that a little better. But I gather this rate stabilization doesn't sound like it's enough to make that kind of significant increase to those estimates that we've seen, which, you know, for example, in the town of Gibson's case was 10.01%. Is that correct?
CAO?
I don't have all of the figures here. I think what is being referenced was the draft taxation after round two, and we knew that those were subject to significant change once we actually did the entries. And the variables were the new assessment valuations that needed to be inputted into that. So some of the amounts that were reflected in the media and the recent press release had the new assessment values put in there. We have some decisions that were made today that are not reflected in those numbers. And those include the surplus deficits, and right up until the budget adoption, those might fluctuate slightly just with variations as year-end entries get done. And then a decision like this would further reduce it. So essentially, what was presented was probably a worst-case scenario in most cases. So what it comes up to, we'll make sure once the entries are done, after these minutes are adopted, we'll send a revised.
Thank you. Yeah, and I think that was a question we were talking about here in the break, is that how can some areas see their taxes go down? And it's really, that assessment change will change the apportionments within areas, and we have had that information in the past as part of budget, but because of the timing this year, we didn't have that information going into budget. So there's, as the CAO said, there's gonna be changes right up until we adopt the bylaw, basically. Director Stanford.
Well, as we're going there, because now we have the assessments there, and in some cases taxes are going down, how does that affect our overall budget if the individual assessments are less and we're taxing less than we expected? Does that make sense?
I'm not even gonna try. I know the answer, but I can't articulate it, so
Oh.
CAO. CAO.
So essentially, with a regional district, the impact of assessments is really the change of apportionment. It's the pie remains the same. So we're not increasing or decreasing the requisition amount. It's how the requisition amount gets apportioned. So, for example, if someone overall was paying 30% of the overall SCRD bill, they might be paying 31, they might be paying 29, depending on how the assessments in that area have increased or decreased relative to the rest of the SCRD as a whole. There's also, how many participants are in the various services, so it's a combination of. So you have to look at each service, and it falls down at the end.
Follow-up, Director Stanford.
Could I get that in writing, please? So I can
Actually,
explain it?
There's some great resources through BC Assessment, because it's similar to the BC Assessment apportionment for like municipal taxation, only regionally. So there are some good resources already out there, for sure.
We'll also provide a little, when we do provide the assessment report in February, the first committee of the whole, we'll have some more specific to the SCRD in that report.
Director White.
Thanks for this discussion, because I think I'm realizing what's going on in the community conversation right now. It seems like the apportionment redistribution based on assessments has been misinterpreted as the overall tax increase. That's my take on something I read this morning, which I said raised my eyebrows. So I hope maybe the Coast Reporter could be directly contacted about that clarification, because I don't like to pick on individual media outlets or articles, but let's face it, that's most of our public's source of information on these matters. And I think what's happened is that the or that change in apportionment based on assessment has been misinterpreted as the overall tax increase in an article this morning. So that's very misleading. So I hope maybe we can work on correcting that perception out there.
Thank you, Director White. Staff are going to look into it. I haven't seen the article. I missed the press release that went out. But I am hoping to pull discussion back to the motion that's currently on the floor. So Director McMahon, I'll go to you.
Sorry, I have a question, but it is not to the motion, so I can wait.
All right, then I'm going to call the question on the motion, and then I'll go to you, Director McMahon. All those in favor? And that is, any opposed? That is carried. Director McMahon.
Yeah, my question is just, we have been pulling budget back earlier in the year for many good reasons, but is this going to cause us a problem with the timing of BC assessment if we should pull it further back? Just a question to our CFO.
Yeah, so I think those are the things that we are identifying as part of the debrief, and we're doing our own assessment of what the impacts are, because we're pulling the budget back 2 weeks earlier this year than we did last year. We're sort of the 27th last year, and we're the 13th this year. So there are a few little hiccups, but how material they are, I think is what we're trying to assess as well, because there will always be these type of little variables. Even if you adopted it in March, you don't get the final assessments until April 1st. So you still have another, these are preliminary assessments, so it's not the final amounts anyway. So it just gives you a sense of where it's headed, or at least an overall change. So these are the pros and cons, and I think those are what need to be assessed as part of what we do for the next year.
Great, thank you very much. I don't see any other hands up, so we're going to move on to item 6.2, which is AVICC resolutions. That's starting on page 25. Directors, we do have the report here in front of us. We do have recommendations. Just here for questions, I think, and recommendations or resolution. Director Bax.
So on page 26, the volunteer fire department funding model, I've given this some thought. This is a resolution that I came up with, and I'm fully in agreement with the first whereas, but then in the therefore be it resolved, the BC ambulance is included in the ask for a change in the funding model, and I know that BC Hydro and ICBC are both Crown corporations that do show profit, and it's reasonable to ask them for some to kick in some money for our fire departments. I would like to have I know that BC Ambulance is not a Crown organization that does have a lot of extra money, so I'd like to have them stricken from this.
To me, Director Bax? Looking over here, right?
Yes, sir.
Yep.
I'd like to have the BC Ambulance stricken from the second paragraph, therefore be it resolved.
Is that a motion you would like to make to
Yes.
amend the resolution?
It's a motion to amend the resolution,
Okay.
yes, sir.
Do I have a seconder for that motion to amend the resolution? Looking for hands, I'm sorry. Thank you, Director McMahon. Any discussion on that particular item? Director Lee?
I guess my question would be, who funds BC Ambulance? Because that's who should be paying. We spend a lot of time as free labor for moving people, that they could dispatch 2 ambulance crews and move their own person. So someone is getting a break at on our buck. So whoever that is who we should include in this motion. So there must be some ministry funding BC Ambulance that we should be directing this motion to.
Thank you, Director Lee. I'm going to go to Director White because he hasn't had a chance to speak yet, and then I'll come back to you, Director Bax. Sorry, Director White, you're muted.
Thank you. So yeah, I agree with Director Lee. I'm also aware that BC Ambulance regionally is very tight on funding, but someone needs to. I mean, if our volunteer firefighters are meeting needs that should be funded by whoever funds BC Ambulance, then that should definitely be included here. It's kind of a missing piece, I think.
Thank you. Director Bax.
I understand where the directors are coming from, and I don't know if it's going down a rabbit hole, but I know that there are limitations to what BC Ambulance will do in a scene, and the firefighters do have a responsibility to do an awful lot of work before the BC Ambulance can even be involved in preparing patients that are away from the roadside. And I know BC Ambulance does not leave the roadside usually. But I'll let my motion stand.
Thank you, Director Bax. I think it's one of those things that we miss the shot if we don't take it. And I think if there's an opportunity that BC Ambulance might be able to come to the table on this, I think it's incumbent on us to try, certainly recognizing that, you know, they're not a Crown corporation like the other two. We do know that the health authorities already have service stresses and financial stresses, but at the same time, it's a downloading of service that we're doing more to help BC Ambulance cover their shortages. So I am supportive of BC Ambulance staying in the motion. And I see a couple more speakers. Director White.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go with you on that, Chair Toth. I mean, I totally understand where Director Bax is coming from because at a local basis, I know well from talking to our BC Ambulance that they need more funding. However, I mean, ultimately, I think it's the Provincial Health Services Authority that funds BC Ambulance, but if we just call it BC Ambulance, it's still somebody's got to give them funding to cover this, and I think we're agreed on that. So I'll go with your take on this, Director Toth, which is that I think we should just oppose this to keep that in there to make sure that's not there's not an oversight there.
Thank you. I'm going to hopefully get through my speakers list quickly and then call a question. Director Inkster.
Yeah, I have concerns about how we approach BC Ambulance Service. I think a number of us have been hearing that the service level is decreasing, and there's a delay in ambulances. And if we're talking about second ambulances, those are two ambulances that are at one scene and not reacting to another call. With our aging population in Seashell and some of the problems in our downtown, we certainly need ambulances to react quicker. So we better proceed with caution to not limit their availability and reaction to some of our growing community's concerns. Thanks.
Thank you very much. And Director Lee, I think you've got the final word.
I used the second ambulance dispatch as an example. I believe our fire departments are a cost-effective way to provide that labor. And but moving to a pay-on-call, which is very, very modest, would be the appropriate way to cover that. And so I think this would allow us to at least get into the discussion. So I'd be voting against the change because I'd like to see the discussions on it start.
Thank you, Director Lee. All right, I am going to call the question. All directors, this is on the amendment to remove BC Ambulance from the motion. All those in favor? And those opposed? That is defeated. Director Bax, it's okay to vote against your own motion.
You changed my mind?
Yeah, yep, that's it. We can change our minds. That's okay. So with that being said, do I have another motion from or any other discussion from directors? If directors are happy with the resolutions that are here, we do have a motion on page 25 that somebody could make. Director Gabius.
Yeah, thank you. I think we did a great job. I will move the recommendations on page 25.
Thank you, and I've got a seconder for that. Is there any other discussion on the motion that's on the floor? If not, I'll call the question. All those in favor? And that is carried. Oh, yep. Director White, you were in favor?
I'm in favor, and I have a question afterwards.
Perfect. So that motion is carried, and Director White, go ahead.
I heard page 25. I'm sorry. I was looking at a different page.
We have an amended agenda or revised agenda.
Oh, okay. I just went to the share site.
Gotcha.
So,
I'm working.
oh, so maybe the other director is looking at the old agenda. Anyway, we just passed 2, right? I'm looking at the right page. So, okay. So that's my page 11 or something. Anyway,
It might,
I just want to check with staff on this for the, it's come up at the town of Gibson's that we definitely support, just at our last meeting, the SCRD's first motion. I think we'd probably support both. So when it comes to adding our name, like to send in to AVICC, how does that protocol work? Like, do we need to send a letter saying, please add our name, or does the board? Yeah, because
that's a good question.
yeah.
I know we've got a fairly tight-ish timeline to turn stuff around too, but
Yeah,
I'll look to the
that's
corporate
understood too.
officer to see about I guess it's joint endorsement or joint submission.
So typically, when we submit our resolutions, they're board endorsed by the SCRD. The town of Gibson's may have to submit something separately to be, if you want to be identified within the resolutions book, if I'm understanding the question. We would need a council resolution, probably from the town of Gibson's. They do need to be endorsed by the elected body in order for AVICC to accept them.
So we communicate with AVICC then on
Correct.
that. Okay. So we'll send them a letter just saying we support these 2.
Okay, thank you. Director McMahon.
Yeah, the advantage of a joint resolution is that if you are the sponsor, you can speak to it. And so if we don't happen to have somebody on the floor at the moment, we've got more options, just saying.
Okay, thank you. I mean, if we wanted to make a motion to forward these resolutions to the town of Gibson's, it probably wouldn't hurt their conversation. I don't know if anybody would like to make that motion. Thank you. Director
No.
Bax?
I move that we forward these recommendations to the town of Gibson's.
Resolutions, thank you. And I've got a seconder for that.
Okay.
Director White, I'm just trying to make sure we've got a proper path or what have you.
Sure.
Closing the loop.
It's just
on it.
causing more staff work, and I was going to say it's not necessary. I mean, we already said we support it, so like we could send the letter today, but that's fine.
Okay. I'll just call the question then. All those in favor? And that is carried. Okay, thank you. I think we're done with this item now. Moving on to item 6.3, strategic plan update. I even hesitate to give a page number because I don't know if my copy's correct. Possibly page 27 in the agenda. And with that, I'll turn it over to the CAO.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So this is a update on the board's strategic plan that was adopted over a year ago. And so we've just added the various strategic focus areas and the elements within the document looking to achieve some of these focus areas and providing an update on various projects and accomplishments that have happened over the last year. And happy to take any questions if there are any. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Directors, any questions? This is just here for information. It does acknowledge that we do have the corporate work plan prioritization work that's underway. So, Director Gabius.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. How do we calculate, how do we measure the success of the lenses that we use? So here we're looking at the priorities, but is there, do we have a mechanism to measure our success there? Like service delivery excellence, for example.
My understanding, and happy to be corrected, were that the lenses were the way the board was going to collectively make their decision-making. So we don't necessarily have any key performance indicators, measurements, or targets. I know it's been an area that with staff in how they reflect the strategic focus area and lenses in their staff reports and tying it back to the board, that we don't have clear understanding of that, because again, it was more about the board's decision-making and not necessarily reflected back in a specific target. However, there are things that the board has adopted that align with your lenses. So whether it's your corporate climate action plan, community action plan, transit-related initiatives, asset management policy, there's a long list that would align with your lenses, but not necessarily to the key focus areas.
Excellent answer, and far better than I could have put it myself, so thank you for that. Any other questions or discussions on this particular item, directors? Director Lee?
Thank you, Chair. I don't remember seeing it in previous strat plans if it was, but I must say it was a very pleasant surprise to see it here, and I'd like to thank staff for that. It helped me focus on the strat plan and realize its value.
Thank you, Director Lee. Okay, I don't see any other hands, so with that, I think we're going to move on in the agenda to item 6.4, which is the parcel tax roll review panel. This is on, I think, page 45 of our revised agenda package. And directors, we need 3 volunteers for this riveting meeting. And I think the record is 3 minutes, but I might be wrong. So, Director Bax?
Not it. I was there last year.
Director Gabius, you're volunteering? Director Stamford, are you also volunteering? Okay. And
Director Lee, come on, we're always here early.
Director Lee is also volunteering. Okay.
I'm happy to volunteer. I did get out of it last year, so it's probably my turn.
All right, so that would be that Directors Gabius, Stamford, and Lee be appointed to the Parcel Tax Roll Review Panel, and that the Parcel Tax Roll Review Panel sitting be scheduled for February 27th, 2025 at 9 a.m. to be held in the SCRD boardroom, and that the Chief Financial Officer be appointed Collector for the Sunshine Coast Regional District. Would somebody like to make that motion, please? Moved, seconded. Any discussion on that motion? Anybody feeling left out? If not, I will call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion's carried. All right, thank you, directors. Okay, moving on in the agenda to item 6.5, which is an insert for the Committee of the Whole meeting recommendations 1 and 3 from this morning. Directors, before I ask for adoption of the small block, would you like to debate either of them separately? And not seeing any hands. So would somebody like to make a motion to endorse recommendations 1 and 3 from Committee of the Whole, January 25th? Director Bax?
I would move to endorse the recommendations 1 and 3 as they appear on page 47.
Thank you, Director Bax. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Director McMahon. Any other discussion on this motion? I will call the question then. All those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. All right, so we have no communications, we have no motions, but we do have bylaws. And I've got bylaws, but I've got a staff report sitting here on the top of the pile. So perhaps I will look to the corporate officer for the Town of Gibson's borrowing staff report. Just a brief introduction. I don't even see it on here. Oh. Okay. Corporate officer?
Thank you, Chair. Will we go back to the amendment bylaw 722 following this? There was one bylaw before this on the
Okay,
agenda.
my apologies. I was printed on the back of a page that I thought was an insert. So, all right, first up, we have Sunshine Coast Regional District Zoning Amendment Bylaw number 722.11, 2024 for adoption, electoral area directors. Do I have a motion for adoption? Moved, seconded. Any discussion or debate? All those in favor, electoral area directors? That is carried. Thank you. All right. So that's that one. Now we'll move on to the staff report. Thank you, corporate officer.
Thank you, Chair. So we did receive 2 requests from the Town of Gibson's for security issuing for 2 of their loan authorization bylaws, which are itemized in this report. I'm happy to answer any questions, or the CFO may be able to assist as well.
Great, thank you very much. Directors, are there any questions about the staff report? There are recommendations here relating to the bylaws that are subsequent to this. So, directors, you are welcome to make some motions here. Director Gabius, do you want to move the recommendations? We'll move on.
Do I ever? I would like to move the recommendations on page 49.
Thank you very much. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Director McMahon. Is there any discussion? If not, I will call the question. All those in favor? And that is carried. So with that, we will move to the bylaws themselves. So we've got bylaw number 770, Sunshine Coast Regional District Security Issuing Bylaw for 2025. May I have a motion for first, second, and third reading, please? Moved, seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? That's carried. May I have a motion for adoption of Sunshine Coast Regional District Security Issuing Bylaw number 770, 2025? Moved, seconded. All those in favor? And that is carried. Excellent, thank you. So moving on to item 9.3, Sunshine Coast Regional District Security Issuing Bylaw number 771, 2025. May I have a motion for first, second, and third reading, please? Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? And that is carried. And Sunshine Coast Regional District Security Issuing Bylaw number 771, 2025. May I have a motion to adopt, please? Moved, seconded. All those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you very much, everybody. With that, we're going to move on to our director's reports. And I think I'm going to start to my right. Director Lee, we'll start with you.
Thank you, Chair. My report will be quite short because we've been extremely busy with our budgets, and it's pretty much been taking up all my time. I did attend a policing update, even though it was via Zoom, because I had forgot about it until Director McMahon quite nicely prompted me. So I did manage to join via a Zoom, well, a Teams. And it was actually quite informative. They've got an excellent report on the crime rate and what they're doing about it. And one of the items that caught my attention was they, in fact, are full complement now of officers. They don't have any vacancies. The sergeant did point out, though, that there's quite a few relatively new recruits. I think that's good. They'll probably fall in love with the coast and stay here. I think that's a very positive for me. So yes, it was an informative and actually quite pleasant meeting, because it was good news with the staffing. And I have to point out that the District of Sechelt were very, very good hosts, and I'm very appreciative of them of doing this for us. So that's my report.
Thank you very much, Director Lee. We'll go to Director Inkster next.
Thanks, Chair. Not much to say. I'll be talking about this for the next few weeks, but it was good to see the good turnout of the directors in the House of Clans in Sechelt and beautiful downtown Sechelt. I was glad to see the good turnout and the good representation of collaboration and cooperation between all the governments on the coast. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Director McMahon.
Yes, as noted, we have been spending a whole lot of time in SCRD meetings, leaving us not that much time for other things. I did participate in a BC Ferries engagement session on January the 15th. Let's see what comes of it. I attended the policing committee on Tuesday. An update, just to make everybody aware, the Elphinstone Community Association is having their winter potluck on Sunday from 4:30 to 8 at Frank West Hall. Other directors are welcome to come by and meet the Elphinstoners. And I have sent out an update to my fellow directors about activities on legislative reform, which is really important for regional districts. We need updates to the Local Government Act. And that's my report.
Thank you for that, Director McMahon. Can you forward us around the information about the community association get-together? If it is indeed open to directors, then, yeah, I didn't take notes, and I'll forget by the end of the meeting. So, Director Gabius.
Thank you, Chair. Not a whole lot of extracurriculars for me this past 2 weeks, but I do want to point out that on Tuesday, coming up on the 28th, there will be an engagement session at the Seaside Center in Seashelt about the Cooper's Green enhancements project, which is very exciting, and really happy that staff has put that together. And I'm hoping that directors can come and have a look at the consultants' work and give their feedback. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Director White, I'm going to go to you, and then I'll keep working down the table.
Sure. One thing that's on our minds here at the town is we're participating in a strategy session with our Harbor Authority this weekend, and that's a big issue for the town because we just had our budget dialogue where 50 people showed up, and always at our budget dialogues there's a lot of interest in what's going on in the harbor in terms of moorage and beautification, and just, I mean, we are a town that's very connected to our harbor. So we've got a really great new board at the Harbor Landing Authority, and we've got staff coming down to do a presentation and kind of connecting our strategic plans together. And it's I know it's definitely a regional concern too, of the asset of Gibson's Harbor to the whole Sunshine Coast. So reporting that to my fellow directors. So it's good work going on. Thanks.
Right on. Thank you, Director White. That session is board to council, right? Like, it's not really open to the public or anything like that. It's invitational?
Good question. So yeah, this is a strategy session for their board only. So it's just a few of us are coming down to connect from, this is like their strategic planning session. But we will have a special meeting coming up to bring together the board to council and kind of with some of the outcomes of this planning session. So that will be a public meeting, and once that's called, we'll be announcing that publicly.
Cool. Thank you very much. Director Bax?
Yeah, thank you. It was a real honor to be invited to the House of Clans on the 16th to share in this wonderful news of our collaboration with the Seychelles Nation, and I very much enjoyed the day. I also attended the BC Ferries Zoom meeting on the 15th. For what it was worth, we made a lot of great suggestions to try to bring back things that they've recently taken away. And on Monday, I attended the Thriving Communities Collaborative, which is a group that's been together for a little over a year. We had Catherine Colby from the Tamarack Institute come and speak to us. She's from Powell River, and so some of the attendees are local government attendees and NGOs. The Resource Center, the Vancouver Coastal Health is there, and we're working on a term of reference for the organization. One of the things that we wanted to share, I think, is that we're gathering to improve the quality of life through multi-sector collaboration. improve the quality of life for the citizens of the Sunshine Coast with a lens on social determinants of health. It's a poverty reduction initiative mostly, but it does involve creating a better way for everyone. I've made invitations through Donna Bell to our local MP to come in and join in the meeting at one point in the future, as well as the Seashell Nation, in the hopes of, that organization will be creating an informational hub. It should be beginning in April, where organizations can bring data and information, reports and such that have value to other members of the group, bring them all into one portal that everyone can access. And so I'll be keeping the board apprised to the progress that happens there, because it may be of use to us, and it may be something that we will contribute to as well. I also attended the RCMP quarterly meeting and discussed in length some of the mental health issues that that appear on the Sunshine Coast, and ways that we can deal with it. I made a recommendation that we try to get 911 to add a fourth option when they say ambulance, fire, or police. They could say ambulance, fire, police, or mental health help. Anyway, I don't know how far that initiative is going to go, but and on that evening, I went to my official community planning committee meeting, and there was a large turnout because of the interest that my community has in the official community plan renewal project that the SCRD is going to be rolling out. And they are waiting on bated breath for any information that they can have, and they're very keen on being involved. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Bax. Director White, I see your hand up. Just give me one moment. I'm pretty sure that the mental health tie-in for 911 is something that's already being contemplated. Remind me later, and we'll see if we can dig up the backgrounder on that. Director White. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up on some of Director Back's mention of the Thriving Communities Group. In that, I figured hearing that, it made me realize this is probably a good place to update the board on the fact that the community action team is, as I think some of you know, has been involved in a restart. It's unfortunately been kind of out of commission for a year or so as the funding agency gets transitioned over to the Sunshine Coast Resource Center. And I've got some great news to report, which is that we've hired a new coordinator, a new project lead for the community action team. And that more details on that will come out soon. But it's something I've been putting a great deal of time into as one of the members of the hiring committee. And so I can share that with the rest of you. It's good news.
That's great news. Right on. Thank you very much. Director Paul.
Yeah, thank you. Mine's really short too, just because other directors have mentioned the event at the House of Clans, which went very well and very good news. And the rest has just been working on budgets and strategic plans and stuff. So very busy meetings. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Director Stanford.
Thank you. I too really enjoyed the day last Thursday where we had the announcement at House of Clans. Beautiful facility. I hope we can see that often. On Saturday, I had the pleasure of spending the afternoon with the West Howe Sound Community Association board and many people from the local community. The answer to our attendance problem for community associations is have it at a pub. So we were at the Persephone. It was a great afternoon. Over 20 people showed up, families showed up, and we talked issues as well as excitement around the OCP renewal. People are interested in what is happening with the areas specifically in the Langdale Heights, the wider Langdale Heights area, and potential for more clear planning for community amenities around trails and parks in that area. So I'll be moving that through with my little APC that we'll talk a bit more about later. But yeah, it was a really good afternoon, and it was nice to meet new members of the community. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Director Stanford. I don't have a lot to report in that I attended most of the same things you guys were at. The $117 million announcement at House of Clans was amazing. Always amazing to get together with our Shell friends. MP Weiler was there, which is great. I guess we were hoping that somebody from the province would be there, but they weren't able to make it that day. I did appreciate the mine tour and seeing the site for Lower Crown. And yeah, no, it was a great opportunity. It may come as a surprise to some, but I'm not much of a public speaker, never have been. Don't like it, hate it quite a lot. And I was told that I had 2 minutes to give my remarks, and so I timed my remarks to 2 minutes, and I will forever harass Patrick about speaking for so long. So I guess $117 million bought him a couple extra minutes. That's really all I have to report on. And with that, we'll move on. We have no new business. We do have an in-camera section. So I look for a motion that the public be excluded from attendance at the meeting in accordance with section 91 A, C, G, and I of the Community Charter. Director Inkster move, seconded by Director Gabius. All those in favor? That motion's carried. We're gonna go in camera. I see nobody in our virtual gallery. I see nobody in our physical gallery. So we'll just take a couple minutes to move over to in camera, and then we'll be right back. And welcome back to the regular board meeting for January 23rd, 2025. It's 3:45 and we've concluded the business on this agenda, so can I have a motion to adjourn? Moved, seconded, all those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you very much, and we'll see you at the next one.